long time ago. I forgot about that.
No, I can count. I'm just nervous, all right?
Clear ass fish. Or paper shit in the water, you know?
Let me just start with
Wow. That shit ain't no joke. This is no motherfucking joke. Straight to the kill. She got this shit set up right. Look, man.
And lemon. Would you like it to scale up?
Look, everything's closed. Everything's closed. Look at everything in here. Look, everything's closed. Must be the life. It is the life.
This is the original break-in oil that I used to fill the engine with. This oil is still pretty much fresh and never have been used. I have a funnel, and this funnel has a built-in screen. So I'm using this to filter out any type of particles or debris that may have gotten into the oil. So that way we can just reuse this oil and prep it for the new 2.0 version of the engine build. Game plan for today is to modify the factory exhaust manifold for some O2 bungs, and luckily we haven't heard any results of these manifolds cracking very bad, but we're going to put them to the test. So when this thing is on the boost going red hot, we'll see how long they're going to last. If not, at least we'll be able to collect some data, and then we'll just make a stainless steel exhaust manifold turbo header flange, which I already have the piping and everything for, at least for my TT, and we'll just have to do the same modification for this one. But the interesting part is we want to set this up for individual cylinder tuning, and we're going to be using the Innovate HPX heat sinking bungs. These things are awesome. I had these on my race car, and I'm using them on each port, of course 4-cylinder, and for every port. So you can see inside it has the two holes. It sniffs out your exhaust, and the bottom port right here acts almost like a scavenging. So you have to clock this. You can see where this dot is. You clock it in line of the exhaust flow, and as it blows in, sniffs this other port to help scavenge it out to keep fresh, I guess, exhaust flow circulating through this port, which is pretty good. So we're going to drill this out, heat it up, drill it, sink it down, because you can see these are stepped, and try to weld these things in here and see how long it'll last. But anyway, let's get to it. So first task of preparing these manifolds, I'm going to grind down and smooth off all the lettering and stamping that's been on here, that's been cast into position, so that these are a lot smoother, and I'll have somewhat of a smoother surface to weld to. I'm temporarily back inside. I removed the casting, numbering, the letters off the manifold. Now I'm prepping to mark the stud locations again, how far they stick out, so I can avoid those areas, and we'll prepare to drill our holes in the exhaust manifolds. Now these are the locations I'm aiming for, so I want to make sure that my open probe right here, where the airflow can protrude into the sniffer itself, make sure that is somewhat in the path of the exhaust port for each one of the manifold inlets for the most part. So that is what we're pretty much shooting for. Of course, this is going to be temporary because this piece right here sticks down pretty much into the exhaust manifold. That is the point of it. But this will definitely pose a restriction. But this will be for individual tuning purposes only. Driving to get complete maps tuned for drivability, cold start enrichments, the whole 9 yards. And of course, big power. One down and 5 more to go. Let's do a quick test fit to see how this works out. Blow off some of this debris. And do a test fit. That's what I'm talking about. Looking good, looking good. Clean it up a little bit. Is at the height that I want it to be. And let's continue with the rest. And this is a reference. I just screwed in the O2 fitting just so you can see inside. So pretty much, and let's turn on the light. Just a reference. You can see that's the top part right there perfectly where the hole is still clamped in the vise, but that's the point. This is sticking down directly in the line of airflow right there. So this can be clocked. And if I aim it right there, the exhaust gases will penetrate that top port and the bottom part will evacuate by scavenging. So let's continue with the rest. Okay, we have all of our holes pretty much drilled out. And the current temperature of this is around 58 degrees. So let's see if we can heat this thing up, get it to around 250, 275, close to 300, and start our welding process. Heating up the exhaust manifold, trying to get it up to at least 250 degrees. Burn off any of the old exhaust buildup and prep the surface for a good temperature. If you don't heat it up, you'll start to hear the manifold start to kink and crack and ping, because it's not up to a good operating temperature for welding. So she's definitely hot. We're looking at over 300 degrees. So let's see what we can do. And I'm definitely an amateur welder, but these are some large holes in this thing. We'll see if this can hold, at least to get us past the tuning process and making some numbers on the board. And then we can always upgrade and revamp later. I'm installing a little copper coat on the threads. I used to use this when I worked at the airport. This worked very good, and I chose to use the copper so that way it can maintain and handle the heat a lot better. This baby is smoking from all the carbon buildup that's in the exhaust manifold, and of course from the heat that is burning off a lot of the carbon. Just finished up with the left exhaust manifold, and I'm bringing it down to a slow cooling process. have a portable heater positioned in front of it, and we'll see how long this is going to last. Some of the first turbocharged applications on the VR6 engines actually used cast manifolds. So it was a couple aftermarket tuners. They used the factory cast manifolds, positioned downpipe, and fabricated that downpipe into a turbo, leading to the turbo itself. So we'll see how long this will last. Hopefully this will get us through the tuning process and maybe even a couple runs down the track. We'll see. Fingers crossed. Either way, if not, we have some stainless steel piping and actually exhaust manifold flanges, and we can just use that and just build up another turbo header. But this is basically getting it started, our first build application for the LDTT, and we'll see. So let's keep it moving. So prepping number 2 is 11 o'clock at night, real late, neighbors sleep, totally dark outside, but I'm getting it done. I just swapped out the manifolds, bringing them down to temperature. The second manifold, this was the original one. This is pretty hot. It's still 134 degrees. So it's been sitting up here for about a good, I want to say 40 minutes, 45 minutes. And it is still warm. This is the one that just came off from being welded up. That's 172, 173 degrees. And temperature is slowly dropping. I've had the manifold sitting in front of the heater for about 3 hours now. Temperature is around 166, 167. So I'm going to slowly turn down the fan and the heat and allow it to slowly ramp back down to room temperature. The back manifold has pretty much cooled off for the most part. That's at 101, 103 degrees right now. And it's still in the path of the heat source, so both are slowly going to ramp down. Yesterday I worked on the exhaust manifolds and they turned out pretty good. I welded in the exhaust bungs for the O2 sensor, so let me turn around and show you how things turned out for this. So this is what we have here. I'm pretty pleased the way this came out. My whole objective was to weld these bungs in so that way we can use our Motec for having individual cylinder tuning on this beast right here. And this turned out pretty good. I'm glad I used anti-seize on the plugs itself, so that way when they're welded up and the heat is causing a lot of distortion and things in place, to make sure it didn't burr up or mess up any of the threads. And everything turned out good. All of the plugs will unthread without any issue at all, so that turned out very good. You can see right here the threads look real good. This plug right here took quite a bit of heat, and each one turned out good. So I definitely wanted to make sure when I welded these in, I tightened these down so that way it can prevent any type of distortion to each one of these rings as they were being welded in exhaust manifold. So our next step would be, I'm going to use a tap, chase each one of the threads out just to make sure everything is cleaned up and pretty good, for using my Innovate heat sinking bung. And this is the whole objective for me welding all of this in position. Once I finish all of this up with cleaning up the threads, I'm going to put each exhaust manifold on the belt sander to make sure the surfaces are nice and even and clean. You can still see that the surfaces made it up to the cylinder here pretty good. So I don't see any type of signs of warpage or anything. But either way, everything that was installed first before was a mock setup for the whole turbo build itself. So I would have been taking everything back off, going through all the prep work that I'm going to do now in preparation for the final installation to get the car up and running. So now we're at that stage, except we're doing a nice revamp with the big boy cams, prepping everything for the Motec and all of this. So here, the studs, I have clearance, everything lined up pretty much exactly where I want. So you can see this overhead look where I do have clearance on each stud for removing each one of the plugs, so everything turned out fairly well. What I will do is I will probably shorten up each one of the studs, because the studs are pretty long. They're sticking out. They're definitely longer than the factory studs. These are aftermarket studs, ARP studs, but I can also trim the back off them a little bit, because you can see right here where the shank is sticking out of the manifold a little bit. Now these do come with heavy duty washers and they're pretty thick, so that will pretty much make up for the gap. But by me sanding everything down, I don't need the extra length for this. I can actually cut down some of the stud on the front, or just remove a little bit on the back side, just to make sure they can thread fully a little bit further in the cylinder head. That turned out good.